Day 1. Arrangement. Kurumi carried the last of her boxes. That was the thing about wartime, Hana thought, watching from the in-gawa as her new housemate made her final trip up the path. You learned what was important and what wasn't. The squirrel woman straightened with a groan, rubbing the small of her back, her round ears swiveling to take in the outside sounds of daily life. Her bushy tail, gray with a white tip, curled upward. Hana knew her tail was a signal of her next-door neighbor's feelings. "That's everything," Kurumi said. Then, quieter, "For 5 years of marriage." "Yes," the cat girl agreed. "You're more practical than me. I would be trying to figure out what to take and what to leave." They had been neighbors for 3 years without being close. Polite conversation over the fence, occasional pickled vegetables and local gossip shared. Their husbands had known each other better, both pilots, both posted together before the orders that sent them east, toward Hawaii, toward a morning that had ended 2 marriages before either woman turned 30. The practical arrangement had been Kurumi's suggestion. 2 households, 2 ration books, 2 women alone in houses built for families. She thought it only made sense. Sharing resources. She tried not to think lonely. By midday, the rooms were settled enough. They had gone out together in the late morning to queue for rations, rice, a little dried fish, enough to make a meal. The city square was bustling with women, children, the elderly, and men who for some reason were not acceptable for the military. People in monpei trousers and kimonos waited quietly for their allotment of food, expressions practiced at not showing anything deeper. It was on the way home that the 2 wolves fell into step beside them. They were big, broad-shouldered men in dark clothes that projected allegiance to the local gang. One had an empty smile and pale eyes. The shorter one said nothing but walked too close, close enough that Hana could feel the heat of him at her shoulder. "2 ladies carrying all that alone," the pale-eyed one said pleasantly. "Where are your husbands?" Kurumi's tail went rigid. Hana kept her eyes forward. "We're fine," Hana said, trying her best not to sound nervous. "Didn't ask if you were fine." He smiled. His companion still hadn't spoken. "Hiroshima's not what it used to be. A lot of women are alone these days. Could use someone looking after them." They walked another half block like that, the men asking questions and matching their pace. The feline-eared woman's grip tightened on the ration bag. She was calculating the distance to the next cross street, whether the old bear man outside the kite sellers would be any use, whether her voice would carry if she raised it. Then a neighborhood warden rounded the corner ahead, his armband bright, spear in hand, looking bored and official. His gaze locked on the group. "Good evening. Is anything going on here?" "No, officer. Just making sure these lovely ladies get home. But since you're here, we can go on our way." The pale-eyed wolf slowed, said something low to his friend, turned and left, his companion following. Hana and Kurumi walked the rest of the way home without speaking. Inside, Kurumi put the kettle on with hands that were not quite steady. Hana set the ration bags down and stood in the kitchen doorway, watching her. "They weren't going to do anything," Kurumi said to the kettle. "In the middle of the street like that." "No," Hana said. "Probably not." Kurumi's ears flattened briefly, then came back up. "I hate that I was frightened. I hate that that's just something we have to think about now." "It always was something we had to think about," Hana said quietly. "Our husbands just meant we thought about it less." Kurumi turned to look at her. Something passed between them. "Yes," Kurumi said after a moment. "That's exactly it." They cooked together, moving around each other carefully in the small kitchen, and ate at the low table as the light outside went gray. The soup was quite tasty. The 2 widows were still learning about each other. "Tell me about him," Kurumi said. "If you want, you don't have to." Hana turned her cup in her hands. Ichiro was very serious. He believed in things. Honor, duty, Japan. He meant all of it, genuinely. It wasn't performance. She paused. "I didn't always agree with him. About the war, About what it was for. Her ears tilted back slightly. I never told him that. Kurumi nodded slowly. Saigo knew I disagreed. We argued about it. Her tail curled. The last letter I sent him, I was still a little angry. I didn't know it would be the last one. She looked down. I've thought about that every day since December. They were honorable men, Hana said. It came out careful, precise. The thing she'd decided was true, that she held on to. Whatever we thought about the war, whatever any of it was for, they were honorable. That's separate. Yes, Kurumi's voice was soft. I believe that too. Outside, the city settled into its nighttime quiet. Inside, the lamp made the room small and warm and theirs. Later, they lay in the dark on the shared futon, a careful distance between them. The cold had settled into the walls of the house. I steal the blanket, apparently, Kurumi said to the cat girl. Saigo always accused me of it. I don't remember doing it. Ichiro had cold feet, always, no matter the season. A beat. I never understood it. Silence. A cart somewhere on the street outside, then nothing. Good night, Hana. Good night. Sometime in the deep of the night, without waking, Kurumi turned toward warmth. By morning she had crossed half the distance between them, her tail loose across the blanket, one hand open near Hana's shoulder. Day 2. Grief surfaces. The morning came in gray and cold. Hana woke first, as she always had. She lay still for a moment, orienting herself to the unfamiliar sounds of another person's breathing, the feeling of a tail brushing the back of her knees. Then she rose quietly, dressed in the dark, and had the kettle on before Kurumi's ears twitched toward consciousness. They moved through the morning with the careful courtesy of two people still learning about each other. Kurumi talked while she went through her day. Small things, surface things, the price of charcoal, and whether the woman at the end of the street had really been hoarding sweet potatoes. Hana listened and offered enough response to keep it going. She had already understood that Kurumi's chatter was not shallowness. It was how she kept herself busy. The day had the particular feeling of wartime ordinary, which was to say, nothing happened until it did. They mended clothes. They boiled water for the bath in turns. Kurumi found half a bag of barley they hadn't accounted for and was pleased about it. Hana reorganized the kitchen shelves twice, the second time for no reason she could have named. In the afternoon, Kurumi sat by the window with a letter in her hands, not reading it, just holding it. Hana recognized the gesture. She had a letter like that too. She put a fresh cup of tea beside Kurumi's elbow and went back to her mending. Kurumi's ears tilted toward her. Thank you, she said quietly. They ate dinner. They washed up. They let the lamp burn a little longer than they should have, talking about nothing in particular. An argument between neighbors, a song Kurumi half remembered from childhood, the way Hiroshima was different in summer. Two women building a life together. Then they extinguished the lamp and tried to go to sleep. It was well past midnight when Hana woke. Not to sound at first, but to the absence of the stillness that had been there before. A change in the air of the room. She was already turning before she was fully conscious of why. Kurumi was curled on her side, facing away, but her whole body was wrong. Shoulders drawn up, tail tucked tight around her, one hand fisted in the blanket. A sound was coming from her, barely audible, the kind of sound that a person makes when they are trying very hard to hide it. Kurumi. Nothing. The sound continued. Kurumi. Hana sat up, reached across, and placed her hand between the squirrel girl's shoulder blades. Kurumi's body went rigid. In the darkness, Hana could see only the pale shape of her face turning, the gleam of her honey-colored eyes. I'm here, Hana said, plainly. Kurumi stared at her for a moment. Then, something in her broke open like a dam under too much pressure. She wasn't dramatic about it. She just began to cry, steady, exhausted tears, the kind that needed somewhere to go. I'm sorry, she said, ragged. I'm sorry, I was... Don't apologize. I dreamed he was still... She stopped, started again. I keep dreaming that he's still alive, and then I wake up and I have to accept the truth. Her voice was very small. Every time. I have to remember every time. Hana understood this exactly. She had no words for it that Kurumi didn't already know. She lay back down and drew Kurumi toward her, simply, without ceremony, the way you'd pull a blanket around someone who is cold. An arm around her shoulders, the smaller woman's face against the curve of her neck, the feel of her own tail wrapping around the crying woman's thigh. Hana began rubbing up and down Kurumi's back. "I know," she said. That was all. Kurumi cried until she didn't anymore. It took a while. Hana held her through all of it, one hand moving in slow, even strokes along her back, the way you'd soothe a child. "We are both hurting. I know this." When the crying subsided, Kurumi lay still and wrung out, her breathing steadying. "Do you have the dream too?" she asked after a long while. "Yes." "How do you handle it?" Hana was quiet for a moment. She thought about honesty. She decided Kurumi deserved it. "I will let you know when I do." Kurumi made a small sound, not quite a laugh, not quite not one. "Okay," she exhaled slowly. "Okay, that's honest at least." Her hand, Hana noticed, had begun playing with the ends of her long hair. Her fingers were loosely curled there, not gripping, just resting. An anchor. Hana did not stop her. She looked at the smaller woman and listened to the city's nighttime quiet and felt the warmth of another body gradually settling, slowing, finding its way toward sleep. "Hana?" Thank you for being here." The corners of Hana's mouth moved. "Where else would I be?" Kurumi sighed. She snuggled closer, finally going to sleep. Hana stayed awake a while longer, thinking about her past, her husband, the woman snuggled against her. After that, the closeness was simply part of things. Nobody decided it, nobody named it. When they went to bed, they lay near each other. When one of them shifted in the night, the other adjusted without waking. By the third morning, the careful distance of the first night felt like something from a different life. Day 3. Noticing. The queue for rice had formed early. They arrived to find it already stretching past the dyer's shop, women in mompe and kerchiefs standing with the particular patience of people who had learned that impatience cost more energy than it was worth. Hana took her place. Kurumi stood beside her, close enough that their arms nearly touched, and produced a small wooden carving of an automaton from her pocket to occupy her hands. The gossip reached them, passed back through the queue in low voices the way information always did, woman to woman. One of the women near the front had heard it from her sister-in-law, who lived 2 streets from where it had happened. 2 men, the night before last, a woman on her way back from somewhere, after dark, alone. The men had pulled her into an alley. She had screamed. 2 men from the neighborhood civil defense had heard her and come running. The wolves had been caught in the act. They were in custody now. The rabbit woman relaying this paused. "Big ones," she said. "Pale eyes on one of them." Hana and Kurumi looked at each other. They didn't speak about it until they were clear of the queue, ration bags in hand, moving through streets that felt different now in a way that was hard to name. Not safer, exactly, but the threat that had walked beside them 2 days ago had been taken care of. "It was them," Kurumi said, not a question. "Yes." Kurumi's tail moved slowly. "I'm glad they're in custody." She said it firmly, like something she was making sure was true. Then, after a moment, "I feel terrible about the woman they hurt." "Yes." She was alone. Kurumi's voice was quiet. "If we hadn't had each other that day—" "We did," Hana said. It came out more certain than she'd intended. Kurumi glanced at her, and something in her expression softened, not quite a smile, but adjacent to one. "We did," she agreed. They walked the rest of the way home close together, being extra careful about their surroundings. The afternoon was small and domestic. Kurumi mended the tear in her sleeve, while Hana made a careful accounting of their remaining rations. Rice enough for 4 days if they were sensible, the barley Kurumi had found, some dried fish, a little salt. Outside, the wind moved through the garden, and the persimmon tree they'd agreed belonged to both of them now dropped 2 more fruit onto the ground. Kurumi retrieved them with the satisfaction of someone who had found pirate treasure. "Persimmon tonight," she announced. "We should save one," Hana said. "We'll save one," Kurumi agreed. Hana looked at her for a moment, cheeks rounded, tail curled up in pleasure, ears forward. Something moved briefly in her chest that she didn't examine. She looked back at their rations. After dinner, Kurumi talked about Saigo. This was becoming part of their routine, keeping him present, making sure he remained a person rather than an ideal. "He was a bad cook," she said. "Catastrophically bad. He didn't understand that you couldn't just add more of everything and have it taste better. More salt, more mirin, more," she gestured helplessly. "Everything always tasted like it was trying too hard." Hana found herself smiling. Ichiro was a great dancer, but he found it embarrassing. He always said dancing was not manly. "I always thought he was handsome and his movements graceful." Our men and their ideals. "I agree with you. He did martial arts." I told him maybe that's why he was so pleasing to look at when he moved. Hana turned her cup slowly, very serious on the outside. People who didn't know him thought he was cold. A pause. He used to hum when he thought no one could hear him. Old folk songs, children's songs sometimes. I think if things were different, he would have been in kabuki, not a soldier. Kurumi's expression was playful. "You miss that?" "Yes, I do." Hana's ears tilted back slightly. After a moment, Hana straightened and reached for the kettle. "The persimmon was good," she said. "Told you," said Kurumi. The night was colder than the one before. They lay down in the dark, and the distance between them had shortened. Kurumi's breathing had almost evened into sleep when she shifted, turning slightly toward Hana, her hand finding the ends of Hana's hair the way it had the night of the crying. Habit now, an anchor she reached for without waking. Hana felt the small weight of it. She did not move. But tonight, she was aware of it in a way she hadn't been before. The warmth of Kurumi's body close to hers, the sound of her breathing. She lay still and looked at the ceiling. She was very aware of her housemate. She turned her head slightly in the dark and looked at the shape of Kurumi beside her, the slow rise and fall of her breasts, her cute, expressive round ears. Then she looked back at the ceiling. She was aware of exactly how close Kurumi was. Day 4. The shift. Kurumi woke slowly, which was unusual. Normally, waking came all at once, a sharp surface, the immediate cold rush of remembering. But this morning, consciousness arrived in layers, soft and gradual, like something easing rather than breaking open. She was warm, genuinely, thoroughly warm, in a way she hadn't been since her marriage. She lay still, blinking at the gray light beginning at the edge of the shutters, and let herself simply exist in the warmth for a moment before she understood it. An arm, around her waist, a body curved against her back, close and steady, breathing slow, breath tickling her ears. Hana. Every muscle in Kurumi's body went taut at once. Her tail puffed slightly, her ears came up hard. Hana's breathing didn't change. Kurumi lay rigid and listened to that slow, sleeping breath and felt the arm around her waist and the warmth at her back and the particular solid weight of another person who was completely, peacefully unaware of anything at all. The stiffness held for 1 breath, 2. Then she let it go. It felt... She didn't finish the thought. She just lay there and enjoyed the moment. Hana woke perhaps half an hour later. Kurumi felt the change. The arm around her waist loosened. Then, quietly, "Oh." "Yes," Kurumi said. Another pause. Neither of them moved. "I didn't," Hana began. "I know." Kurumi kept her voice even. "It's all right." It was strange, she thought, that it was. That she meant it. 3 mornings ago, she would have sat up immediately, created distance, offered the small social fiction that nothing had happened. Instead, she lay in the warmth and stared at the wall and said nothing further. And Hana's arm remained where it was, and the morning continued gray and quiet around them. After a while, Hana's arm did withdraw, carefully, as though not to disturb something, and they rose and dressed with their backs to each other in the cold room and started their day. The day was overcast, the sky the color of old iron. They did not go out. There was enough rice, enough to do inside. Kurumi repaired the shoji screen that had been rattling in its frame since the first cold wind, while Hana cleaned up in their small home with the focused attention she brought to everything she did. They talked and kept away from what had happened the night before. By afternoon, they had done everything they could. Kurumi finished her repairs and sat back on her heels and looked at her own hands for a moment. "Can I ask you something?" she said hesitantly. Hana looked up from what she was doing. "Yes. Do you feel guilty?" Kurumi's ears were low. She kept her eyes on her hands. "Not about anything specific, just in general, about still being here." Hana was quiet for long enough that Kurumi began to regret asking. Then, every day. Kurumi exhaled. Saigo believed in what he was doing. He went willingly, he was proud. "I know that, I don't doubt it. But I argued with him about the war. I thought," she stopped. "I thought Japan was heading somewhere dark, and I told him so, and he disagreed, and that was the last conversation we had." Her voice had a slight quiver to it. "I wish we could have had more pleasant last words than those." When she finished, the room was very still. "I didn't say goodbye properly," Hana said. "His last posting came through quickly. I was in the middle of something. I cannot even remember what it was now. And I said goodbye, the way you say goodbye to someone who's leaving for a week." Her voice was careful, constructed. "I didn't know. Of course I didn't know. But I've turned it over 10,000 times, and I still can't forgive myself for my behavior." Kurumi looked up at her. Hana looked contemplative. She was gazing at something that wasn't there, her tail fidgeting. "Hana," Kurumi said softly. "I know it isn't rational," Hana said. "I know it wouldn't have." "Hana." She said it differently this time. Hana's eyes moved to her. They were close, Kurumi realized. The afternoon's work had drawn them together, and they were sitting perhaps 2 feet apart, and the gray light was doing something particular to Hana's green eyes. She reached out. She slid her fingers into Hana's black hair, simple and deliberate, the way you might tell someone, "I see you." Hana went very still. Her eyes were dark and level and close, and the steadiness in them was something Kurumi had mistaken for coldness once, and understood now was something else entirely. The effort of holding, always holding, because she did not know what would happen if she stopped. Kurumi's thumb moved, stroking the edge of the cat girl's ears, an intimate gesture. Something in Hana's expression changed. Neither of them moved for a long moment. Then Kurumi leaned forward, slowly, giving every opportunity for Hana to pull back. She didn't. A tentative kiss, questioning, lasting only an instant before Kurumi drew back, and the room came rushing in around them again. The light, the repaired shoji, the smell of rice and fish. She looked at Hana. Hana looked at her. Neither of them spoke. Kurumi became aware that her hand was still stroking Hana's ear. She lowered it slowly. She began. "Don't," Hana said quietly. Kurumi closed her mouth, nodded once. They sat in the awkwardness for another moment. Then Hana reached for a book and opened it. Kurumi understood this and turned back to the window, and people watched and felt her heart doing something she had no current language for. The evening came. They cooked, they ate, they spoke of small things, carefully, like people treading on eggshells. When they lay down that night, the distance between them was different again. Not the formal distance of the first night, not the easy closeness of the night since, but something new and uncharted. Hana lay on her back, Kurumi on her side facing her. In the dark, Hana's hand found hers. Kurumi curled her fingers around it and held on. Neither of them slept for a long time. Day 5. Tentative Exploration. It was Kurumi's practical suggestion, as most things were. The water takes too long to reheat, she said, not looking up from the fire she was using to heat the water. And we would use twice the water. It makes more sense to share. Hana stood in the doorway of the small bathing room and said nothing for a moment. Yes, she said, that makes sense. Neither of them elaborated on whether sense was the only reason. Kurumi went in first, while Hana finished tidying the kitchen. The ritual of it was ordinary. The tub, the steam rising in the cold air of the bathing room, the smell of cedar, and the clean mineral scent of the water. Kurumi washed quickly, the way she did everything, efficiently and with some splashing, and was rinsing her hair when she heard Hana's quiet step in the doorway. She didn't turn around. There was a pause, and then the soft sounds of Hana undressing, folding. The water shifted as Hana lowered herself in. They sat at opposite ends of the tub in the steam, not looking at each other directly, and the silence was the new kind. Aware, like the silence of the night before, but warmer, less nervous. Your hair, Hana said after a moment. Kurumi reached up. She'd only half rinsed it, twisted now and dripping. I can never quite reach the back. Turn around. Kurumi turned. Hana's hands were unhurried and thorough, working through the wet length of Kurumi's hair, careful at the tangles, palms pressing gently at her scalp. Kurumi sat very still and looked at the wooden wall and felt each point of contact as something distinct and present. The pads of Hana's fingers, the warmth of the water, and the warmer fact of being tended to. She couldn't remember the last time someone had washed her hair. The thought arrived without warning and lodged itself somewhere painful, and she didn't say anything, but something in her shoulders must have changed, because Hana's hands slowed. All right? Hana asked quietly. Yes, a breath. Yes, keep going. When Kurumi's hair was done, she turned back, and they were face to face in the small tub, and the steam made the bathing room its own separate world. No lines, no war, just this. The water, the cedar smell, the two of them. Kurumi reached out, and Hana, understanding, turned, presenting her back, straight-spined even here, even now. Kurumi washed it slowly, the washcloth tracing the line of her shoulders, the ridge of her spine. Hana's ears tilted back slightly, relaxing in increments, like something slowly untensing that had been tense for a long time. You carry everything here, Kurumi said softly, her thumbs pressing gently at the knotted muscles below Hana's shoulder blades. I know, Hana said. Does it help, holding everything so tightly? A pause. It's the only way I know. Kurumi worked at the knot slowly, carefully, and felt it yield by degrees. You could try the other way sometime. Is that an offer? I think it might be. Hana said nothing, but she didn't pull away. Hana turned back around. The steam had flushed them both, the water cooler. They were close in the small tub, had been close for the past half hour. But now the closeness registered differently. Kurumi became aware of the particular quality of her own attention, the way it was moving, unhurried and curious, over the details that the steam had hidden. The line of Hana's collarbone, the way her wet hair lay against her neck, the woman's small but perky breasts. She looked, and was aware that she was looking and didn't pretend otherwise. Hana met her eyes, and then, slowly and without embarrassment, she let herself look back. There was nothing rushed in it, nothing urgent, just two women in the cooling water of a shared bath. We should get out before the water gets cold, Hana said. Her voice was steady, her eyes said something else. Yes, Kurumi agreed. Neither of them moved for another moment. They dried and dressed, and the air between them held something, an unresolved question. Kurumi combed out Hana's hair by the lamp. Hana, sitting still, eyes half closed, ears forward. The comb moved slowly. Neither of them spoke. When she was done, Kurumi set the comb down and her hands rested at Hana's shoulders, and they stayed like that for a moment, both of them aware of her hands there, both looking at nothing in particular. Hana. I know, Hana said quietly. I know. She reached up and covered one of Kurumi's hands with her own. They stayed like that until the lamp began to gutter, and then they put it out and lay down in the dark. Kurumi's forehead against Hana's shoulder, hand in hair. Day 6. First time. They put the lamp out early. No discussion, no pretense that either of them was tired. Kurumi reached over and extinguished the flame, and the dark came in around them, and that was the only signal needed. They'd been moving toward this all day, both of them knowing it, neither saying it, the knowledge sitting between them at dinner like a third presence. The careful way they hadn't touched, the way Kurumi had caught Hana watching her, and Hana hadn't looked away. The way the air in the room had felt thicker than air had any right to feel. Enough of careful. Kurumi turned toward her in the dark, and Hana was already there. The first kiss was nothing like the hesitant one 4 days ago. That one had been a question. This one was an answer, sure and warm and unhurried in the specific way of someone who knows what she wants and has decided to open herself to it. Kurumi kissed her with hunger and need, and Hana made a small sound of pleasure against her mouth that broke through her resistance. You're so beautiful, Kurumi sighed. Hana eagerly began to undress Kurumi. She willingly helped. Kurumi had done this before, when she was a teenager with her best friend, both girls curious and eager. She paid attention, thoroughly, unhurriedly, learning what made Hana's breath change and then doing it again. Hana, for her part, was an eager participant. It was the first time in longer than she could account for that her mind went quiet. No past regrets, no ration lines, no social approval. Just Kurumi's hands and Kurumi's mouth and her own body reminding her with some insistence that she was a woman and she still had desires. She wanted to feel good, and she was not quiet about it. At some point, she couldn't have said when, Kurumi laughed, low and warm, not unkind. There you are, she murmured. Hana understood what she meant. She pulled her back down into a kiss. They were not delicate with each other. There was no reason to be. The tension of days found its release and they let it. The cold outside irrelevant, the war outside irrelevant, the careful constructed mask they wore in public irrelevant. Kurumi was generous and sure. Hana responded to her eagerly. After, they lay in each other's arms relaxed, breathing slowly. Kurumi's tail was draped across them both. Hana was looking at the ceiling with the expression of someone who has just found something she didn't know she needed. You've done that before, Hana said. Not an accusation, closer to wonder. Kurumi sounded pleased with herself, rightfully. With my best friend. We were young, we were curious, and we really liked each other. She was pretty like you. Kurumi played with her breasts and slid 2 fingers back into her, gently rubbing her clit with her thumb. Hana gasped with pleasure. Again, Hana said. Kurumi's eyes warmed. I think you don't have a problem with that. I like you, and let's see if I can get you to purr, Hana. The cat girl laughed, delighted, and pressed into her lover's hand. Day 7. The light. She had not planned to be happy. That was the thought that moved through Hana's mind, slow and wondering, like a fish through water. She had given up on ever being happy again when the man she loved died in December, when the letter arrived and her life became something else. But happiness was something that could not be predicted or controlled, no matter how hard you tried. She would never have imagined that her next-door neighbor of 3 years would become the most precious thing in her life. 7 days. She thought about that. 7 days since a woman she had only known as an acquaintance had become everything. The morning was starting, the sunlight coming gray and soft through the paper of the shoji screen. They had left it open a crack, the window beyond it, the sky beyond that. Hana was aware of the sky the way she was aware of Kurumi's face nestled between her legs, coaxing soft whimpers of pleasure from deep inside her. She was lying back against the pillows, her heels on the smaller woman's shoulders. Please, right there. Don't stop, you're so... Kurumi was making a woman out of her, showing her what an attentive lover could really do. Hana's mind rode the waves of ecstasy. She thought about the 6 days, the boxes, the soup that was more suggestion than substance, the horrible wolf men on the street, and the beautiful squirrel girl loving her with fingers and tongue, the nighttime crying, and the arm she had not thought twice about offering, the persimmon, the lamp burning low, the bath, the steam, the careful hands working knots from her shoulders, the first hesitant kiss and the awkwardness after. Ichiro had loved her. She had loved him. She did not doubt either of those things. But she had never felt. There. Her breath left her. She could fall in love with this woman. She understood that about herself. It did not frighten her. It confused her a little, but this was something she wanted to explore. Yes, baby. Kurumi, who was practical and warm, and talked too much and laughed at the right times, and had carried everything she owned in boxes that were too light, and had held her through the dark without being asked. Kurumi, who was about to make her toes curl, her back arched up off the futon. The gray light through the shoji was brightening. Morning coming in properly now, the sky beyond the window going pale and then paler. And Hana's eyes were open, and she was looking at it without meaning to, the light coming through the gap, and her body was... Kurumi, The light outside went white. Not gray, not pale morning. White. Total, filling the gap in the shoji and then the world itself, the whole screen luminous, the whole room. She thought, in the last fraction of the last moment, body arching into her lover's mouth, the words still forming in her throat, she thought, "It's so beautiful."